John Dupuy, welcome to the World Happiness Fest and Agora. It's a real pleasure having somebody who is a pioneer in technology and healing that can explain what is the impact of brain waves, understanding brains, understanding sound, and how can we actually heal the world through it. So thank you so much for joining. Why are you in the space, by the way? Can we start with that?
Yeah, why am I in the space? Well, I've been around for a few years, so it could be a mini series, story after story, misadventure after misadventure. But I had always been very spiritually hungry, if you will, and I had my first experience, mystical, spiritual experience. I think I was either 11 or 12 years old, and just the universe was filled with God, and God was love, and it was everywhere, and I didn't know what to do with that. And I grew up Catholic, and I never dawned on me I should go ask a priest like what the heck was happening. But anyway, so had those experiences of God or divine presence or peak experiences. You can say it religiously or not as you want, but these experiences when you find out that what you really are is something that does not exist in time, and that you've always been that at the deepest level, and you always will be. And so the kind of the temporary incarnations and manifestations that we have are very interesting and very real in a relative sense, but it's not our ultimate identity. And when one does that, it's not just an intellectual understanding, but it's a full body, full soul, full being understanding. It's like, oh, and it's often characterized by as if we're remembering something that we always knew but forgot. It's like, oh yes, where have I been? So that started me out. Later on, after a number of careers, I ended up in the wilderness of southern Utah in the United States, and I was a wilderness guide, and we were taking young people out on extended wilderness journeys to help them kind of sort their lives out and figure out what was going on. They were having problems and issues, and about 80% of those who came to work with me or work with our company were there because of drug and alcohol problems. Not all of them were addicts, but most of them were having problems with it. And so the program began to rapidly evolve into a treatment center for people having problems with drugs and alcohol. And I'd worked in centers before. I'm not an addict myself, but anyway, I'll get on with my story. And we knew that meditation was essential. It says so in the 12 steps. And by that time, this kind of new revolution about meditation, where everybody knows meditation is good for you, right? It's on Lifetime magazine, mainstream, blah, blah. You see it everywhere. So we were just getting into that period. And I realized I wasn't very good at meditation, and my students certainly were worse than me. And so what we were going to do about this. And this was when I found this technology, brain entrainment technology, and there were a number of companies doing it at the time. So I ordered some tracks, and I began meditating, and I had a lot of experience attempting to meditate anyway. And immediately within the first 2 or 3 days, I had this huge spiritual, another opening, non-dual, bam. It's like, oh my God, it's like, am I enlightened after 3 days? And I don't know if it was enlightening. It was an enlightening experience, but with many spiritual experiences, they're states that come and then they go. They hang around for a while, and the lights are on, then the lights go off again, and you're left with the memory and like, wow, what was that? So that's one of the challenges when we're doing spiritual work, is how to differentiate between just really groovy experiences and not become addicted to having groovy experiences, but looking for something deeper happiness and deeper joy and deeper fulfillment, that these moments of enlightenment can be very useful and helpful, but not to get too hung up on them or begin to chase them as the goal of our spiritual practice. Okay. So I had this experience, and I said, man, this is amazing. Maybe this could help my students who are trying to learn how to meditate with this technology. And so I had this big experience. And prior to that, I'd been suffering from clinical depression, deep depression for many years. And my brother had committed suicide, and I was right on the edge of that kind of, I wanted to kill myself a lot. And for those of us who have been through depression, you know, at that level of suffering, death is no longer something to be feared. Death is seen as a release from being, a release from suffering. You know, if you've never been there, it's like, oh my God, why would I want to kill myself? Well, for those of us who've explored that, a lot of addicts, by the way, know that depth of suffering also. And I think that's why my students would listen to me, because when I told them my story, they understood that I had suffered in very similar ways that they had. So I started using this and testing it on myself. And then I went through about 9 months of releasing somatically from my body the trauma that had been keeping me on the edge of suicidality for years. And that's when I became very interested in this technology, and I began to use it with my students. I never had an idea that I would start my own company or ever make money from this. I was just wanting to let people know. So the people that own these companies, they loved me because I was giving this all free marketing, and I wasn't selling that. Just get this, right? And some years later, I met a gentleman, Eric Thompson, who was making this technology, and he said, I think I'm doing it better than it's being done right now, that we're advancing the technology. So we both had an interest in the field, and I listened to his stuff. It was really powerful because at that time I was very familiar with the technology. You know, it's like if you're never played a guitar, you could pick up an old crappy guitar and you won't know if it's any good or any bad. You don't know what to compare it to. However, if you're a guitar player or musician, you can pick up a guitar and right away know where it's valuable. Well, anyway, I knew these tools were very good. So we started this. It's been about working on 10 years with my wife. And we started this company. We called it IAWAKE. And that has been our mission and goal. And with those, I mean, in our community, those who use our technology, they're just very supportive and very loving. I really appreciate the work we're doing. It's not addictive in the sense of heroin or alcohol or any other kind of behavioral addiction where like you're craving it. But after a while, you understand that the daily practice of using this and immersing yourself into the depths of your own being that this technology allows you to do just immediately is so beneficial. You can't imagine, why would I want to go back to, you know, kind of being asleep and just, you know, the practice works on so many levels, which is where we get to happiness and true happiness. And Luis, what your work is about. And so we created the tools. We also support people. It's not just you just have the tool. To my students, I used to say that your card to the gym you belong to won't do any good in your wallet, right? Yeah. You actually have to go to the gym and live something for it to start, you know, feeling the effects. So the same thing, we can create the tools, but if we don't understand the philosophy and the discipline of a daily practice, we won't get the benefits out of it. And if we don't do a daily transformative practice, and of course I'm writing a book about this now, we will, in most cases, never become the people that we are potentially born to be. We will never actualize into what Luis and John was supposed to be. And that is one of the most horrible things that can happen. Talk about no true happiness. When you never manifested the essential gifts that you were given here to promote and to give back to the world. So that's what we try to do. And we have a little formula that I think I got it from Ken Wilber, who's a friend and been a mentor and a dear man. But anyway, and he said, this is the meaning of life. Okay, you ready? Seriously.
Yes, please.
I'm going to
Yes,
give it to you.
let's go for it.
So once we get it, we go, oh, okay. All right, let's move on from there. So the first thing is you have to wake up. Despiértate, right? Wake up,
Yes.
remember who, and by the way, I speak Spanish. We didn't know that, but I grew up in Latin America.
Maybe we can do another one in Spanish.
Yeah, puede ser. So, yes, to wake up, and that is in the sense of transpersonal psychology, is having one of these experiences where we remember who and what we really are and always have been and always will be, okay? And it's becoming enlightened or this. And obviously, it's a state experience that comes and goes, but with time and practice, we can actually begin to stabilize that knowledge. So just in quantum physics, they look at one of these little entities and they see a wave that spreads out into infinity. You look at it another way, you see it's an individual particle. And we're the same way. We go with spiritual practice, we realize our true nature in the big sense, in a very lived, and this is not just intellectual, remember, in a very big sense. And then we come to understand what our mission and goal is as an individual human being born into a human body at this time, okay? So you put these things together. So wake up, but that's the big waking up. The next is grow up. Grow up. But I thought if you were enlightened, all your problems would be solved and you'd be able to do trigonometry and math and art and play the guitar like Jimi Hendrix and, shoot basketball like LeBron James. No. You still have to, the ego, this vehicle, still has to grow up into the highest level that is capable of achieving, because the spiritual energy and the gifts that we get from our practice will be misused, mishandled, and really used in dumb ways if we don't clean up the ego self. So anytime there's a spiritual practice, and forgive me, Buddhists, but that claim that the ego is not real, in my experience, it ends up kicking everybody's butt. The same ego that you're pretending not there just takes over, and you have a cult, you have just abuse, and this is awful stuff. So not only do we have to wake up, but we also have to grow up to these highest levels. And if you look at the culture wars in the United States, for example, where the red and the blue, they just can't stand each other, they scream. Obviously, they live in different universes. They don't have anything to do with truth on either side of the street, and it's a mess. So what has to happen is a number of us, and this is beginning to happen, let's get to these higher levels of our personal development, because at those higher levels of development, we begin to understand that everybody has a perspective. Some perspectives are more or better than others, but we begin to put it all together, and we can begin to listen and talk to people at whatever level they're at in ways that are compassionate and wise. And from those levels, I think it was Einstein said that you can't solve a problem on the level it was created. Hence evolution. We get to a point where the conditions are so stressful that our current way of being and doing is no longer meeting the needs of our survival. Then mother evolution kicks in, and we get to this next level where there are higher levels of human development that are coming online in ways that have never happened before. And partially it's in part because we have the technology, we're creating tools to do it, and we're beginning to understand practice in the human brain like no other generations have ever done from the perspectives that we have. Okay, so you have wake up, only 2 more to go, and grow up, get to these high levels so that your awakening can be channeled through a healthy, functional ego. Means also, it's the next one, is clean up. Yeah, wake up, grow up, and clean up, which means clean up your life, your diet, your food. Physically, you can use all that stuff, right? Good fuel, and your body, you'll be a much happier person and much more effective in your life's work and your relationships. But it also means cleaning up your interior stuff, your shadow issues, your hatreds, your traumas, the things that happened when you were young and that you split off because it was too painful to deal with back then. And all of these things can get in the way and cause, in my case, it was depression, and just get us in the way and create ways of acting and projecting and stories about reality that are really no longer functional. And sometimes we're not even aware of them. So we have to get there and do that interior work too. And the last one, okay, is after you wake up, you grow up, and you clean up your act, then you have to show up. And this is where, and all these things are not done sequentially. I mean, all this stuff is happening at the same time. But for true happiness at the deepest level, and I think that's what you're talking about, Luis. I'm sorry, the guy I work with is Louis. But anyway, Luis, it is about service, okay? And it's not just about, having a good time and celebrating and all that, and which is wonderful. Human beings need to get together and enjoy one another and enjoy, life and bring our hearts together. But then we have to go back with our hearts and our hands open back into the world to deal with the issues that we're confronted with and to eliminate unnecessary and ignorant suffering, right? Suffering we're not going to get away from suffering, but we don't want ignorant suffering. We want noble suffering, and we want to address it in a way that is dignified and that comes from a place of compassion and wisdom and understanding. So wake up, get to the highest level you can as an individual, clean up your act internally, externally, and show up and give your gift back to the world. And when you're coming from that place, when you have those 4 things pretty much established and part of an ongoing process, because it is a journey, I think we will have new understandings and experiences of what soul-centric, deep, non-dual human purpose and happiness are all about.
Wow, John, this is really remarkable. So much wisdom, and as you know, what we are trying to do here is to show up. In many ways, what we don't know and this is the funny thing, is that we already woke up. So it's interesting, right? Because there are so many people right now, more than 2 million organizations around the world trying and doing social impact, but at the same time, it looks like we are not yet there. So I think that the wake up, which is the first step, as you say, is probably the most difficult. What do you think?
Well, I think we just got so many bad ideas about what it means, and I don't know, and it's all challenging, okay? But it's all worth doing. But when you wake up, Jesus said, he said in Gospel of John, he said, except a man be born again, he cannot enter the kingdom of heaven, okay? Become as a child and blah. So what happens when you're born? You're this little helpless infant who will die if they're not taken care of for, 10 years at least. I mean, and so when we wake up, it's like being reborn as a new spiritual being with a new understanding, but we're still really children. So we have to work on ourselves. And there's been so many mistakes made by people that had these waking experiences, and then kind of their egos takes it over. Well, I must be the new Jesus, and everything I say is perfect, and blah, 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 blah. And people buy into that because they want people to tell them what to do, and they want teachers that can make them feel happy for moments, right? And can be very, very problematic, waking up without the cleaning up, the showing up, and the growing up.
So how do we do this? I mean, I think the stages are very clear, and I think that the technology and the science that you are using in order to help people to go through all these stages is very powerful. I always remember one of the trips I did to China, I was 14 hours actually listening to some of your tracks. And I went through most of the waves, and I went through most of the frequencies. But I was testing. I mean, this is what it could. It's, as you say, it's not addiction to something else. It's testing and find the right way for you to find the right balance. But can you explain to us, how does it work? What is this world of sound, waves, and healing? How does it work?
Yeah, well, I've been working on this for a long time. Before we started IAWAKE, and I've written a book, and but the book I'm writing now, I was telling you about, is a lot about this: waking up, growing up, cleaning up, showing up. And the idea, the vehicle, the way to establish that and get that going is called integral practice, can be called integral life practice, integral practice, integral transformative practice. Call it what you will, right? A rose by any other name is still a rose, right? As the bard said. But so this means you have to commit to a transformational practice on an ongoing lifetime daily basis. Okay. And the 4 things that you can work on as an individual, get beyond that. Sometimes, you have to work with groups and stuff, but as an individual, without excuses, you can work on your body. All right. How are you gonna be happy and have a positive impact on the world if your body's in crappy shape? If you're obese and you eat sugar and all these, bad things, you'll just be miserable, and you'll just be, as John Lennon said, you'll be part of the problem and not part of the solution. So you have to take care of physical exercise and nutrition, stretching, yoga, strength training, cardio, all of that stuff. Second one is you have to fill your mind with good stuff, with wisdom, right? And remember in the beginning of the computer revolution, it said GIGO, garbage in, garbage out. A lot of us are like that. We get addicted to social media or internet, blah, or whatever it is. And it's really not good for us. It's just addictive. And, and here we are, you spent 2 or 3 hours and you've achieved nothing but mess your mind up and make yourself feel bad. Okay. So we need to listen to, read the great books, listen to the real teachers, talk to people deeply, ask questions and listen to their answers. Okay. So we have to work on our knowledge base, on the mind. All right. This big, amazing human brain, which is the most sophisticated thing that we've ever found in the universe thus far. Okay. It's really something to be honored. The next is emotional health, which I talked about with the Wake Up, Grow Up. I'm kind of covering the same ground. So the first thing is take care of your body, take care of your mind, take care of your emotions. Okay, and your shadow stuff, the painful stuff you don't want to look at, but also shadow stuff can be the essential gifts that you were given this time around to manifest in the world. And if you don't do that, there's a part of you that's never going to be fulfilled. You can get cynical and angry, depressed, all kinds of things. I'm not dealing with the dark side of the street, but also with the light side. So you have to bring that work, the emotional work. And last but not least is a spiritual practice where you go into your own interiors and you hang out there long enough so you start to get who and what you really are. And the nice thing about IAWAKE is that it really helps with almost all of those things. So I actually train my brain when I'm working out physically, when I go to the gym. So I'm working my brain at the same time. Exercise is really good for the brain, so it's kind of doubling up. And you can also use these technology to listen to while you're reading, which I'm sure you've done in your extended trips across the oceans and whatnot.
Many times. Yes,
and it helps you think creatively. If I have a project I'm working on, I put on my headphones, I have my legal pad, and I just kind of hold the question. Is there anything I'm supposed to be seeing or doing with this project? And the ideas start flowing. And do the emotional work. When you're meditating, not only do we get to these deep places, can cultivate with techniques and the technology, these places of deep, enlightened apprehension of who and what we are and the whole universe put together, what that all means, what that sense is. But you also can let go of your old feelings of anger, resentment, failure, I'm too stupid, I'm too this, I'm not good enough, all the stuff that we seem to accumulate from setting. You can feel the feelings, let them express themselves and let them go. They come in, oh, this is, and I've worked out ways of doing that too, but the point is that all of these things are part of a daily practice. And it sounds like a lot, and it probably is, but so what? I mean, anything worth doing is worth doing well, or worth doing bad for that matter. You have to start off with not being an expert. And then there's a spiritual practice. And in that part, we get to that non-dual experience, but we also get to the soul-centric, the deepest part of our individual self, where our mission, our goals, our relationships, what I'm here to do is all there. And it's not just your ego or neurotic, this, that, and the other. You begin to differentiate. Oh, this is the wisdom voice, and I need to pay attention to that. So, so basically, yeah. So you wake up in the morning. This is just, you can do it however you want it, but this is based on many years of experience. Do your meditation first, right? Before the kids get up, before you have to take the dog out, before this, just have your place set up. Have your, coffee cup or a cup of tea, whatever you do, and have your headphones and go do your meditation. I recommend, if possible, doing it for an hour. Is that important? Okay. And the longer you meditate, the deeper it gets. So, and some days I'll meditate more than an hour, and at that hour thing, man, it just, you really get into the deep side of the ocean at that point. So, and make sure you're reading and studying. When I do cardio now, the gym across the street, thank you, God, for it's easy for me to work out. But the first time in my adult life, I'm near a good place to work out. I'll get on the cardio and I'm doing my jogging, my running, but I'm listening to podcasts about, there's a lot of great podcasts out there about things that matter, people that I need to understand more. And so I kind of put these things all together, and it probably takes about 2 hours a day. And you just got to find a way to do it, and excuses don't work, and if you're really going to get into the evolutionary fast lane, you really have to practice. And not only do you have to practice, but you have to include in the practices all the essential things that if you leave any of it out, will cause the whole building to collapse, right? It'll just cause yourself not to find out who you are, not to get your job done. And a lot of this whole practice, both the non-dual and the soul-centric work, is life as a vision quest. What am I here to do? Creator. Before I discovered any of this stuff, I was going out into the deserts of southern Utah and vision questing. As a lot of native cultures have done. I kind of learned it from Plains Indians, Native Americans in Lakota, and I had an elder teacher. But anyway, I'd go out there and fast for 3 to 4 days and just say, Creator, little old me, and if I don't find out what the heck I'm supposed to be doing, I don't know if I can bear the pain of being alive. So give me a mission, give me a purpose, give me something to contribute. Because I just need it, I just need to be doing something that matters, and so I did. And it sometimes the spiritual life is a detective story, right? You start getting clues and evidence and this and that, and you follow it to who and what you're supposed to be. And that has been, it has been a purpose and the goal of my life, and then helping other people to have the tools and the technology and the understanding how to put this all together, why to do it specifically, what to work on, how to work on it, and what does it practically look like from day to day.
Well, this is fascinating, John. Can you explain a little bit about what is the difference between a delta, theta, gamma, alpha, beta, epsilon?
Yes. Yeah. Well, the brain has that they started discovering in the last 30 years or so, maybe 40 now, maybe even 50. Time keeps moving, but that the brain manifests certain brainwave frequencies. Okay, and you look at them through the machines, you see little fast waves or slower waves like this, just like in the ocean. You can go out in the ocean and see choppy water or flat water, or big powerful waves. And there's beta, alpha, theta, delta, epsilon, and gamma. And these they found out in the early 70s when they started getting the brains, looking at the brains of through the technology that was then available and is now available, the brains of people who were experienced meditators, monks and nuns and mystics, and they would go into these deep meditative states and wiggle their finger when they were there. Then they would take snapshots of the brain and see what's going on. So they started learning that there was commonalities that these people were going into these deeper brainwave states, alpha, theta, or delta, and the masters could go down there, and what they would describe are peace, joy, insight, enlightenment, all of these things from being able to cultivate and train their brains to do these things. A little later on, we started learning that sound waves, binaural beats, that was the first part of the technology, could entrain the brain to whatever desired. So if you saw that some of these Tibetan masters were going down into delta and really good things were happening, well, can we make sound technologies that people listen to that entrain the brain to whatever state, whatever frequency of delta we want, and see what happens. And lo and behold, it worked. And lo and behold, people started experiencing the things that the deep master meditators were talking about without having to go live in an ashram, without having to go, live in a mountain with a guru or by yourself or anything. So it's like, oh my God, the ancient traditions, wisdom traditions taught us about meditation. Then we were able to take science and look at it and see what was really happening. Then we were able to create the tools that actually help us to get there in a 10th of the time, a 15th of the time. And the problem with a traditional meditation for most of us, it's too difficult and it takes too damn long for you start feeling really dramatic results. And most of us will not dedicate a lot of time for something that's not working. Ken Wilber said one time he meditated for 2 hours a day for 5 years before he felt any positive effects. Talk about heroic. No, myself, I couldn't do that. So with this technology, you can feel the results after using it one time, and it's quite dramatic. So people are encouraged, and then you have somebody like me ranting and raving and say, you got to do it every day. A greatness was never achieved by half-ass effort. We kind of have to get heroic in our practices. But I don't feel heroic, and it's really hard to get started. Yes, it's very true. Nevertheless, you got to get started, and you have to be a beginner. If you're going to learn a new language, you're going to really sound like an idiot for quite a while if you're not willing just to go and learn all this stuff. So yeah, it takes effort, but it's also, it's the meaning of life. It's what we're here to do. So how can we not engage,
Yeah, the reality is that, it's so true. Just with even 3-4 minutes of going deep into a meditation with some sounds that actually can get into brainwaves in a different way, and the impact. That actually would love to understand a bit more when to use an alpha or when to use a beta. But the reality is that just in a few minutes, you can connect very, very quickly to yourself.
Yes.
It's a deep connection that you can feel, and when you do that, it's like, wow, okay, this might be working. And then I think that that's a good incentive for everybody to say, okay, I'm gonna do something else. So can you recommend where to start? What would you start? Would you go into what type of frequency for beginners? And how would you actually choose? You go for something that is more a gamma base or alpha? Do you combine frequencies? How does it work?
Yes, and yes. But what I would suggest, we have a product called, it's kind of the center of what we do. Is called Profound Meditation 3.0, and I believe it has 17 tracks. And 12 of them are different phases of delta, the 20-minute tracks. And then we have, there's some gamma thrown in there, and there's some releasing tracks, alpha, theta. And anyway, but that's a great place to start. And I would start, and there's a few caveats here. We've often said that if you suffered deep trauma, that you should be careful. And really kind of ease into it, because sometimes part of getting well or getting over trauma, as I well know in my own case, is you have to, at some point, you have to go back and re-experience it and feel the feelings. And you can look at the thoughts, but don't take the thoughts as gospel truth. They're just your thoughts, your mind created around the trauma, and feel those things. But with the expanded awareness or spaciousness, or just becoming identified with awareness itself, you can go through these things. The body can release them, and they won't destroy you, or they won't freak you out. And that barely ever happens. But we've been saying that ever since I started this company. And we haven't really have anybody melt down with any of this stuff. But I think some of the earlier technologies weren't quite as smooth and easy to use as what we've now created. But anyway, start out with a 20-minute track and do that every morning for a couple of weeks, and then start noticing. And then as time goes on, you can work up to an hour, or some days on a special day, on a Saturday, you might have a 3-hour meditation, because, it's like you're beginning a new project or a new relationship, or something big is coming up. You have to write a book, and you really want to get clear about it. And you can do longer meditation periods, or do an hour here, an hour there, and all during the same day. Yeah, but start off and work your way up. Just as if you've never been to a gym, well, it's probably time that you go to a gym and start working out. But don't expect yourself to be a incredible athlete or really strong or really good when you first go. It'll take a little time and practice. But with this technology, both the gym and working the body and working with this meditation technology, you begin to feel the results really, really quickly, like in the first week or two. And if you need to get a coach, or you need to get support, or you need to join a practice group or start a practice group to help yourself stay accountable and inspire yourself to do it, do whatever it takes. And in fact, at IAWAKE, we're talking about beginning a integral practice group where, we have talks about it, but people have a place. Because right now, if you're doing it, it's probably a pretty lonely endeavor. Because there's people working out, and there's people meditating, and there's people doing this and that, but they're not all putting it together in an integral practice. And we pretty much figured out that these are the things that need to be covered and gone back to day after day, month after month, year after year, etc.
And we'll be very happy to help here when we invite the audience from World Happiness Fest to actually try all these tracks that we're going to be offering. We'll be more than happy to actually help creating those groups. John, can we talk a bit about what we call the biofield technology and resonance? This concept of two energies enter into resonance with each other. What does it mean?
Well, it's really a good question. It's very controversial, and it's right on the cutting edge. And with the binaural beats and all of that technology, the isochronic, we know exactly we can see what's going on. It's easy to measure. With the biofield, subtle energy, and mind you, this is the same technology or the same energy that we're talking about in Tai Chi, Qigong, the different energetic medicines that came out of the East and other places. That's what we're talking about. We don't really exactly understand why. And I have done Reiki on people and put hands on people and healed them. Whatever energy came through, I had no idea what the hell I'm doing, but I know it works. So with the biofield, in fact, we are thinking about rearranging the website to say this is really experimental, and lots of people are working on it. They know it's real. We can feel the effects. We know that the tracks are very powerful. In other words, if we would just put a track with some rain sounds on it without any of the the biofield or anything, and then put one with that, and two different people, different control groups, the ones that are listening to it are going to have a much more profound experience than the ones that are not. So what are we talking about? Chi energy, energy source energy, life energy. Can we create technologies that seems to bring that forth and manifest that in ways that are positive? Yes. What exactly is happening, we don't know. And the same thing goes for electricity. We really don't know what the hell it is when you get down to it. But should we stop using it? I don't know. Maybe we should, but probably not at this stage. So it is a mysterious area, and probably about 35% of our tracks may have that, but it's indicated. And we were thinking about, maybe we shouldn't use that stuff, but then again, everybody loves it and it works really well. So there you go. I guess there's still things that science hasn't figured out. And one of the ways that we research this is not only through the scientific data and reading the brain when we're using these technologies, but also the phenomenological, the experiences of individuals as we practice and use these.
I think that what I personally love the most is that you are experimenting, but you are really open. This is an open box, so everybody can see what's really going on and what is behind. And actually, this is so important that everybody knows that something is an experiment, that we don't know why it's happening, but regardless, we experiment. Is part of what the Noetics Institute is doing as well.
Exactly.
So I think that this is fantastic, and I feel that at some point, each individual that has to go through the process and through the journey of seeing and knowing what's going on, of course, with the right coaching and with the right direction, I think that will be much helpful, right? But something that I think that you know already how it works is the difference between binaural and monaural beats, right? I think this is something more tangible, and this is something that actually you base a lot of what you do into that difference. I think that you have binaural, monaural, and isochronic tones, right? Can you explain what is the difference?
Well, the basic difference with the binaural is you have to have headphones on, okay? Because what we learned back in the 70s, or maybe some of the shamans and people, they understood this before, but if you take, say, 100 beats in this ear and 110 in this ear, hertz, and the brain doesn't quite know how to deal with that difference, the 10, so it splits a difference at 5 hertz, and it creates a phantom wave where the brain actually entrains to the difference between these two waves. So if it's 5 hertz, it is desired brainwave that you want, you can use the sound to entrain the brain to get to that spot. With the binaural and the isochronic, it's done in ways that you don't necessarily need headphones. So some of the tracks you don't have to headphones, you just listen to them, background, white noise or something, and you'll get a lot of effect. For the binaural to be most effective, because you have these two different signals that are creating the phantom signal, that's when you need to, that's, as far as practitioners, is probably what we need to know, understand. And if you want to go to IAWAKE Technologies, to our website, oh my God, there is a lot of science there. And if you want it, if you need it, it's certainly there. And as well as testimonials, which is so important to me, of people that are using that. In fact, we have so many. We're going to redo our website just to really feature these things. Everybody's talking about what's going on in their lives. It's really inspiring.
So, well, I'm blown away. When you talk about wisdom, you have to focus on wisdom every day. Today is my doses of wisdom, because you talk about the formulation, right? It's from awakening to cleaning. So all these stages of growing and actually realizing that we have to show up in many ways. You actually went through even what to do when we wake up in the morning, and then how we can actually have tools that can help us. So actually you gave us kind of the whole opportunity to really show up and make a difference. So I'm so thankful for this, and I really appreciate that.
You know, and one of the things is when you learn the discipline of practice, when you learn how you can get to experiences of performance and achievement in whatever area you choose, it's really amazing. And now we say you have to work the body, the mind, the emotional, do the shadow work, and have the spiritual practice, those 4 things. But you can take those disciplines and you can take your healthy body and your healthy brain, hopefully, and then dedicate it to whatever other things you want to master. For example, in my case, I am a dedicated, passionate guitar player. Electric blues guitar. And I started playing guitar when I was like 11 or 12 years old, but I somehow through my mini-series life, I didn't learn to play electric lead. And so at one point, a man down the street, my home in Utah, had a company where he would sell vintage electric guitars. So I went over there and I found this old Telecaster, and it just felt great. So I was like, I was 50 years old. I said, is it a little late for me to start, think that I can pick up something as complicated as a lead guitar and think I can reach any kind of mastery? Well, had great success, and I've gotten really good because I know about the discipline of just that to get to these levels of achievement, and freedom takes discipline. That's the paradox. Freedom is not just doing whatever you want whenever you want, right? Freedom is the deep joy of becoming who you can be and who you were born to be. I also play a lot of tennis, which I'm really not that good at.
I want to challenge you. We have to.
Oh, okay. Well, I wouldn't be too worried, brother. I'm still working on it. But right across the street now, I'm living in a place where there's a tennis coach where I can actually get training for the first time in my life. So I've had to completely deconstruct my tennis game and start over everything. So I went from, functional in my crappy made up tennis game that I did for 30 years. And now just like, And so the whole thing, I just couldn't do anything. Talk about humility. And now the changing and the deconstruction and the reconstruction of my practice is starting to pay off, and it's actually becoming inspiring. But I could, when I was trying to learn to do my serve correctly, I couldn't even get it over the net. It was just like, but anyway, it's coming back. So there's a great joy in practice and adopting a life to realize that whatever essential qualities you need to cultivate takes practice, and it's just cultivation through repetition. And the more we practice, the better we get at practice, and the more effective our practice becomes. Practice.
Let's go practice. Thank you so much, John, for showing up and being awake. I think this is fantastic, and I hope that we can bring all the amazing tools that you have created to as many people as possible. Thank you again. Thank you for being part of this movement, trying to heal and trying to get freedom and consciousness and happiness to all. And I see you on the court soon.
I can't wait.
On tennis. Thank you so much.